Okay, you might recognize this. This is Baden-Powell, named after the English gentleman officer who founded the Boy Scouts of America. There's a monument up there. I might go up there tomorrow if I'm allowed time. But for today, I'm in this parking lot here at Vincent Gap. Right here is where Blake and I hitchhiked the ride here down in town. Normally, I come in from way down here in the south, and I come up Highway 39 or Azusa. And I come up here, you can get the east fork goes off this way. This north fork going up to Crystal Lake. This is the west fork coming over to the Glen Camp or the Cogswell Reservoir. Bear Creeks, you just come up here. But this time, or I also go in the Baldy area. But this time I came down to the 210, all the way around, up the 15, off the 138, came up here, 138, all the way up to here, Mountaintop Junction, caught the 2, brought the 2 all the way over here to Vincent Gap. Now, this is the area I'm targeting today and tomorrow. I'll show you why. I got some really interesting information on something down there. Okay, I didn't take the turn off to the old mine, which would be the Bighorn Mine. I'll explain to you more about that, but I have videos on it if you want to check that out. But I'm dropping in. It's a well-established trail. I believe, I'll look at my map, but I believe just from memory, it's about 3 miles to the bottom, I believe. And I believe elevation is 2,400 feet gain and loss, up and down. Pretty easy going down, pretty hard coming up. Okay, check this out. How cool is that? I have this in one of my other videos, but I have loads of information on the guy. I've had a hard time memorizing it all, and it's so great. I've printed it out, and I'm just gonna read it to you guys, share it with you. I'm gonna look for some stuff that it talks about in this area too. But this is where Tom Vincent of Vincent Gap and of the Bighorn Mine up there on the hill, this is where he lived, him and his partner. There were 2 bunks. I believe I read they were over here. He had a table over here. He had a bunch of hides, bear hides, mountain lion, 1 or 2 mountain lion hides I read, and bighorn sheep all over the inside of this. And there's this fireplace. Now this is the original fireplace, the original foundation. But all of this, rangers have had to rebuild. A fire got it about a decade ago, I guess. What boards they were able to salvage, they did salvage, but you can see the newer wood. But in the original cabin, all these shingles he did by hand with a hatchet. And look at this. Here's a collection of old mining supplies people have found and thrown in here so others can see it. So if you see it, leave it here for others to see. He's got an old pan. I don't know, some backpacker might have left that, or it might be his. Some old nails. Now in one of my other videos here, I eat dinner here with Mountain Man Dave and Blake. I'm gonna have lunch here. Now, it's documented that when he lived back here, he was bothered by insects, such scorpions, a lot of scorpions back here. Scorpions, big, huge biting ants, amongst other insects. So, somewhere around here on the outer perimeter, I doubt it's findable now. But it looks like it might have been here. I'm not sure exactly. Might have been there too. He had a moat going around this cabin. And there's a spring way back on this other side where he had a second mine, the Blue something. I'll look that up. But he piped the water down from that spring using gravity and filled this moat and kept the moat going. Whoa, look at this. I'm gonna go up there and check it out. He kept this moat going to keep insects out. Look at how cool that is. It looks like it'll hold me. It holds itself. How cool. Whoa, hold on. I'm actually up in the trees a good 30 feet. It's not going anywhere. If it does, I'm dead meat. Whoa, look at this. I'm a good 30, 40 feet up. Look at the view from up here. Yeah, but he ran that moat around the cabin to keep the bugs and scorpions and ants at bay. Now, for mountain lions and grizzlies, yeah, there were a lot of grizzlies back here back then. Now back there's his mine. That's Baden Powell. Now there were a lot of grizzlies back here. He had a 12 gauge, 50 caliber that he used to keep with him when he did all of his hunting with. I don't want to leave too much stuff. Somebody might come around and find my stuff. Now there's the back of the cabin. So, I know a lot of you who watch my videos will be interested in this. Some of you will be really turned off because I'm reading it from downloaded papers, but there's no way I could remember all these facts. I remember a lot. I have a great memory, but I don't want to mess up and somebody say, oh, it's not that way, it's this way, I read this, so I'll just read it to you. It'll only take a few minutes. Okay, check this out. The article I got off the online, off a website, I googled the man, and the article is written by a Lonnie D. Cloet. Lonnie D. Cloet. The guy did a lot of research. There's a link to it off of John W. Robinson's site. John W. Robinson, this guy took John W. Robinson's information and expanded on it. Okay, Charles Vincent Daughtry, born 1838 in Ohio. He died September 8th, 1926, Los Angeles, in Los Angeles County. The article is called, Was He or Wasn't He? In September 1926, a thin, frail old man lay dying in Los Angeles hospital. He was a bit of a legend in the Southern California area. People knew him as Charles Tom Vincent, that old, grouchy, antisocial miner who lived in the San Gabriel Mountains. He was a loner who lived off the land, associating with only a small handful of acquaintances. And one of his acquaintances was Will Heaton, way down the river over there, Heaton Flats. There's a picture of him. He looks like one of the guitar players from ZZ Top. And this guy looks like the singer from ZZ Top. Let me see something. Let's see. He survived hunting. He was very skilled at prospecting near the San Gabriel River in East Fork. Since the late 1870s, he had lived in a small one-room cabin right here, built on the east side of what would later become known as Mount Baden Powell, named after Lord Baden Powell, a lieutenant general in the British Army who founded the scouting movement called today Boy Scouts of America. Vince, there's a lot of gnats in here if you see me waving my hands. Vincent dug a moat around his cabin to keep insects out of his home, filling the moat using a pipeline system he devised to bring in water from a nearby stream, which is back over this way. It doesn't run year-round though. Vincent's cabin was filled with numerous hunting trophies, horns from bighorn sheep, antlers from deer, and pelts from many bears, deer, and sheep, as well as smaller game. An article in October 6, 1888 issue of the Los Angeles Times told a story about one of the close encounters with a local grizzly bear population. Told a story about one of his close encounters with the local grizzly bear population. There are no grizzlies in Southern California today, but in 1800s they were pretty common and in the local mountains. Today, we only have black bears here. In 1888, Vincent and his partner, Delancey, were out hunting for bighorn sheep when they came upon 3 grizzly bears. One bear immediately began to attack. going after Delancey. Before it could reach him, Vincent dropped the bear with a .50 caliber bullet through the head. This angered the two other bears, who also attacked, one after each man. Again, Vincent stopped the bear that was headed for Delancey, this time with a bullet in the chest. He had a chance to shoot. The third bear was on him and knocked him to the ground. As they struggled on the ground, Vincey pulled out a knife and stabbed him deep in the chest and in the neck. Delancey finally managed to fire his own gun, putting a bullet through the last bear's head. Vincent was not seriously injured, though he was scratched up quite a bit in the incident. He kept the hides from all three bears, with heads and claws, intact among his many hunting trophies in his cabin. Other than his two partners, one of Vincent's few friends was Bob Pallett, for whom the nearby Pallett Mountain was later named. Pallett was a rancher from... Hold on, there's something outside. I'm sitting here filming and I hear something outside. I walk around the corner just in time to see two bighorn sheep go down over the side. In 1895, on many hunting expeditions with bighorn sheep, he discovered gold at about 7,000-foot elevation on the steep eastern slope of the Mount Baden-Powell, a couple of miles from his cabin. He and his partner Delancey and Lockwood began developing the mine, digging several tunnels and extracting out the ore, but they could not afford to mill or transport the ore, so they began trying to entice investors to finance in their venture. Unsuccessful at finding investors, they eventually were forced to sell the claim in 1902 to the Lowell and California Mining Company. The Bighorn Mine was so named by Vincent after a particular sheep he was hunting when he discovered it. Eventually it became the largest gold mine in Los Angeles County, with miles of tunnels, 6 I believe, spread over 6 levels, and 10 stamp mills were erected nearby the mine's main tunnel entrance. In its heyday, it was thought to be the richest mine in the world, but after several years of digging it proved to be anything but. During its operational life, the mine yielded about 100,000 to 200,000, but that was a lot back then. Over the next 40 years, with no spectators' results, eventually the mine was shut down. World War II stopped gold mining activity in the United States completely at the time. Vincent was secretive about his past. He never talked about his life before he arrived in the San Gabriel Mountains. As he lay in the hospital bed in 1926, he knew he didn't have much time left. One day he told his doctor he had a confession to make. He said he wanted to be buried in the National Cemetery in Sawtell, now part of Los Angeles, near Westwood. But the only way that would happen was if he revealed his true identity, so his military records could be verified. He told his doctor his name was really Charles Vincent Daughtry, and he was a wanted man. It seems in April 24th, 1961, he enlisted in the U.S. Army to fight for the Union in the Civil War. This guy was at Gettysburg. 5 years later, he became a private from the newly formed 8th Regiment of Ohio Volunteer Infantry, part of the Army of the Potomac, organized in Fremont, Ohio. He was assigned to Company F and spent the next 3 years fighting against the Confederate Army. In 1863, he was wounded at either Gettysburg or Chancellorsville, depending on whose account, the history story you choose to believe. Maybe both. He was mustered out of the Army on July 13th, 1864. After being discharged, he headed west, eventually winding up in Arizona, where his partner Lockwood and he prospected. They located a claim and began mining it. One day, after many long hours of work, they returned home to discover 3 thieves ransacking their cabin. Vincent Lockwood shot all 3 of them. They immediately buried the bodies, fearing the legal persecutions of the act. They abandoned their claim and their cabin and fled for California, ending up in Los Angeles. Lockwood stayed in the Los Angeles area, but Vincent didn't like life in the city, and he soon wandered off to prospect the eastern Sierra Nevada mountains around Death Valley. While researching the story, this guy was researching the story, he did find a U.S. Census record of Charles Vincent living in Bodie during that period. But since that record indicated a man was born in Ireland, he believes it was probably a different person. Years later, Vincent eventually drifted down south to the San Gabriel Mountains, where he lived out the final 40 years of his life. Vincent loaned his name to a few organizations. Vincent loaned his name to a few locations in Los Angeles County, such as Vincent Hill Station, Restaurant and Saloon in the Antelope Valley, between Palmdale and Acton. Also named for him was Vincent Gulch, which I'm in, a tributary of the San Gabriel River, East Fork, near Vincent built his cabin. And there's a Vincent Gap, that's up there where I'm parked, where I came down. Let's see, Vincent Gap. A popular opening between peaks along the Angeles Crest Highway, also near his cabin. While those last two locations are popular with hikers, his nearby cabin is still very secluded and difficult to find unless you really know where to look. In the 1910 census, incorrectly transcribed by Ancestry.com as Charles Tarrart, living in Los Angeles in a boarding house. On this guy's website, there's actually a picture that he found in Ancestry.com of the boarding house, and it shows right on what bed this guy Vincent lived in for a little while. Information on here too about how many ounces of gold, copper, silver, everything that was pulled out of there. Let's see. Besides his discovery of the Bighorn Mine, he worked a second mine further down the mine gulch called Blue Cat Mine, with a handcrafted stamp mill that was outfitted with a Pelton wheel by water from his local spring. He was living in hiding. Okay, this guy, it seems he was living in hiding. He thought local authorities in Arizona were after him, but they never were. They never actually were. So he lived 40 years with a fake name, off by himself, and they were never really looking for him. Towards the end of Vincent's life, sickness forced him out of the mountains and into the hospital in Los Angeles. Nowhere to go, and no doubt feeling anchored to his hospital bed, old man Vincent finally came clean to his attending doctor. He admitted killing 3 men who tried to jump a gold claim in Arizona many years ago. Vincent died in 1926, never realizing that he ran and hid in seclusion for no reason. In 1968, claim jumping with intent to commit harm to its owner was a cause for justified homicide. You were okay to kill claim jumpers in 1868. In the end, fortune did not favor the foolish. There was no reason for Charles Vincent Daughtry to live in hiding for most of his life. Arizona law was never after him. Now, on here also, it shows the cemetery in LA where his gravestone is. It shows the actual gravestone. I will visit it in a future video. Right now they're doing a lot of work down there and you can't even get near it. But yeah, this guy lived here in seclusion and he didn't even need to. Incredible guy. So that's the history on this guy and this cabin. Now I'll show you a bit more around. Back to the more exciting stuff. Now there's a picture of Tom Vincent right out there, standing there. The camera's on the other side. There are only a couple photos of the guy known to exist, and that's one of them. He's written his name and his partner's name in the dirt, and he's standing there, and his .50 caliber is leaning up against a tree. Probably right here. He probably had some antlers, I would guess. The original game plan was to have 5 subscribers sleeping in this cabin. Didn't play out that way. To show you how secluded this cabin is, I can hear people way back there coming down the trail. You walk right past this. Oh, it's starting to rain. It's starting to rain, sprinkling. But they're walking right down past here, and you don't even see this trail. I mean, people do know it's here. It's really off the beaten trail. So this is where those two guys lived, hunted, and on one of my videos, my daughter and I went up to that mine. I show you a lot about that mine. My daughter did a little rappelling on a rope to get to it because the trail's washed out. But that's a really cool trail if you want to take that for your kids. It's right off Vincent Gap. You come down, within 10 minutes you hit a trail, take the one to the right and just follow it over. It dead ends at the mine. It doesn't, oh, there's a hawk. Look at that. Look at, oh, nice big old beautiful hawk. I hope nobody vandalizes this. It'd be a shame. See some spray paint on there or something much worse. Enjoy it and protect it. Your kids are going to want to see it someday, and their kids and their kids.